Mental Health Matters Thursday. Johanse Ayodike joins me on set, and we get into another very interesting discussion this morning. Johanse, great to see you. Good morning.
Good morning, Jason, and morning to everyone viewing.
Today's topic, we're asking, are you in the 20% or 80%? Of what, Johanse? I'm trying to figure out where we're going here this morning.
The 20% and 80% is more metaphoric numbers. What I've realized, and hearing from clients and also my own observation, is that in many organizations and even groups, there are 20% of people doing most of the work and 80% just riding it out.
Well, people who do group projects could relate to that, you know, whether it's a school group project, whether it's university. Yes, there are many who, they are the ones who put in the work, and everybody else, when it's time to celebrate, hey, you know. But I guess it's an honest question to have with yourself, because you have to fall in some particular bracket, 20 or 80.
Correct.
If you fall in 80 and you're still celebrating, you should feel away.
Yes, you should feel away.
Because some people don't, you know, you want to say. They put in no work and they jumping up in the celebration, you know, they want the confetti, you know.
And that's fine, and actually I want to talk the 20% a little more, because I've noticed the 20% that carrying everybody, because I'm glad you mentioned the group project, because that means it's starting from early. That dynamics of humans, where 20 only do now, 20 is still a metaphoric number. It could be 10, 10, 90 too, you know.
Yeah, I understand
right?
The concept is really people, less out of a group doing the work, but the majority jumping up and to say, hey, you know.
Correct.
Yeah, and we see it all the time.
And I'm talking to the 20% now, because one, you're running yourself ragged. And I have a lot of clients came saying that is that why they're so stressed, and after investigation realize that they're doing about 10 people's job. Now I exaggerating a little bit here, but they're doing more than they should be doing. And it's about time to allow the 80% to do their job. Because what we doing, we creating complacency. We creating a system that can't last. Because after a while, the 20% will eventually get tired and things will fall long. And the 80% not in the habit of doing the work, so then they can't even carry it.
I have an interesting curveball here to throw at you.
Tell me.
What if you have a 20% mindset? You're a go-getter, you're a hard worker. That's the way you've been trained, that's your whole ethos. That's how you live. But you fall into 80% environment. And we see that lots of time with people going into a workplace, especially young workers, getting a job for the first time, coming into the organization, enthusiastic, full of energy, full of zest. And seniors say, hey, take it down, boy, we don't operate so here, you know. You're trying to show we up. And sometimes the 20% people just fall into a kind of 80% culture. How does one stay true to themselves and keep your spirit high in that kind of environment?
One, see it for as it is, because I myself have experienced that before. I remember coming home from university, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, right? And
You're
wanting
ready
to do certain things. And met with that same thing, you know, you're doing, actually I was told you're doing too much.
You're doing too much, yeah.
Right?
Take it down.
And I was flabbergasted, but I had to face the reality that this is how it is in some places. So one, I would say to that person, face the reality, because some people do face the reality and still trying to do something that don't exist. So face the reality first, and then also become disagreeable. You don't have to be agreeable to everything. Even though you're a go-getter, even though you want to make a change or do better, doesn't mean you have to agree with everything. And also expand your horizons, because let's just say you pick a specific profession and you have a goal. I want to work this place to make this change. But you realize the truth is you might end up falling in an 80% category. Then see it for as it is, and then move on. As simple as that.
Because I think that is a big challenge, especially for young people who go into the workforce. I won't call any organization or any sector, but we have heard of that kind of culture. You go in, you're enthusiastic, you want to get things done, and people tell you, nah, your productivity a little too high. What are you trying to do? You're trying to show us support. And then there are many who sometimes, because I guess the majority sometimes rule, you fall into the 80% mindset, and gone are the days of your enthusiasm and your zest and your zeal. It's almost diminished.
Listen, stop it. I just say nah, just stop doing it because the 80% can function. But if we still allow it, and I was even investigating, why do people sometimes fall in that 20% category? Some people it's because at childhood they were groomed and they were reared to please leaders, to please their elders. So when they go into a work environment, even though it may be abusive, even though it may be more than they could handle, because they are trained like that, they end up falling into that 20% category and propping up the 80%. And also, some people in the 80% good at identifying these people, identifying, wait, now this person likes to do the work, right? So I'll give them all the work and not talk to someone else. So I'm talking to this 20%, and this is across a lot of sectors in society. And if this morning you're viewing and you are part of the 20%, keep doing your work, keep doing it well, but also become a bit disagreeable, because after a while, your life will suffer. After a while, you wouldn't have time for your family, you wouldn't have time to do things you really want to do, and you'll end up giving yourself over to the 80%.
Let me put a little twist on it, because we find ourselves in a modern time. We saw President Biden this week putting some restrictions on AI. I mean, that's a big conversation now. AI makes work for many, especially if you're doing administrative work or you're working via that creative space, much easier. Is it a tool? Could it now add to the overall output of the 20% and probably even make the 80% don't look as bad, because you could use the tool? I mean, it's a tool that to be used.
Well, using the word tool, a tool is something that, let's say, has no emotion, right? So like a hammer or AI, right? You could use the hammer to destroy, you could use the hammer to build. To the 20%, explore tools to make things better, because AI is a tool that can enhance, but be careful not to get dependent on it, because it's AI, and I don't know if you ever use any AI like ChatGPT, etc. After a while, you could tell when an AI writes something, right? If you read enough, it has a certain pattern, certain syntax in the way it speaks. So for the 20%, yes, use as many tools as you can, but still do become dependent on it, and still do allow the 80% now to still run your life ragged.
Interesting. I mean, this is quite a discussion, and again, we kind of touched on the work aspect. I want to take it back as we look to wrap things up. School, work projects. Sometimes you get bitter arguments, big disagreement, big bacchanal, especially when it comes to group projects. Everybody, they're given a responsibility, and not everyone will step up to the table. How do we negotiate and navigate that kind of environment, especially if there are many dropping the ball on the 80% side?
One, for the 20%, set the rules beforehand. Two, if it's in school, stay in contact with the teacher or your professor. And I'm now to the teachers and professors. Sometimes teachers and professors don't want to have to deal with that, So just say, well, all you work it out and say something like, well, you'll experience this later in life. But that may not be always true, because the professors and the teachers has to be the authority on it also to support the 20%. So I'm saying for the 20%, set your rules, set your boundaries, but also for the professors and the teachers and the leaders to support those in the 20%.
Interesting. As we wrap things up, just give you a chance to put some closing remarks, because when I saw it, I was like, I wonder what direction we're going, but I'm happy that you brought this up, because this is so true. And I go back to the point I made. Young people, I remember being that person coming into media back in the day, enthusiastic, and there were people who took advantage too. I wanted to just get on radio. I was so excited, and I was supposed to work 12 to 5. Well, that was the stipulated shift. Sometimes I would come in from all 10 and 9 o'clock.
I understand the experience.
I mean, granted, it worked out well for me because I got more experience and more exposure, but when you're young and you're enthusiastic and your eyes bright and you come into a space and then people tell you take it down, it's almost a real buzzkill, it's a heartbreaker,
Yeah, I was also almost disheartened by the same thing. But once you have that enthusiasm, I would say continue pushing forward, recognize that the 80% does exist, that have people who were willing to not do any work but still want the accolades. And don't give up. even though you're the 20%, don't run yourself ragged, still maintain work-life balance, but still be enthusiastic and don't make life complicated, because even though life is not easy, it's really not that hard.
You know, as Anthony B said, nobody want to plant the corn, everybody want to read the barn, you know?
Correct.
Yeah, Anthony B put it so correct and song. This is what you brought there is life. You brought this as real as it gets, and this is reality, and it's up to you to decide if you're on the 80% side, you're on the 20% side as it pertains to work, and me, I'll be on the 20. Yeah,
I agree with that.
Straight. Yeah, man. You want to say, as always, many, many and sincere thanks. We get ready for the morning shot with Ian Wason. He's up next. That in-depth analysis, sports, Backpage, and all the other developments. Tonight, Champions of Business Awards, the Grand Gala at the Napa. See you there. Ian Wason up next for the morning shot. Have a great one, TNT.